So in this next part, we're actually going to deploy our application to the Linux server. And what we need to do to help us with this is add another extension to VS Code called deploy reloaded. So let's go and add this extension. And I'll just go to my extension tab. And we just want to look for deploy.reloaded in here. And we'll take this one and we'll install this. And this is going to allow us to send our files over the SFTP protocol to our Linux server. And because SFTP uses port 22, because it goes over SSH, we don't need to do anything with our firewall inside Linux, and it's pretty easy to get this working and configured. So we'll use this to deploy our application, and once this is installed, we'll just head back to our little script. And what we need to do with this is add a settings.json file inside our .vs code folder and add the following. So I'm just going to copy this into my clipboard, and this contains the settings for deploy reloaded. So it knows which files we want to publish and where we want to publish them to. So I'll just head back over to VS Code, and inside Solution Explorer and inside VS Code I'm just going to create a new file and call it settings.json, and inside here literally just paste in the configuration that was in my clipboard. So what we've got here, we've got deploy reloaded functionality, and the package that we're deploying is going to be the files contained in a publish folder, and we'll create this when we run .NET publish very shortly. And what this is going to do is going to use SFTP to publish to our Linux server, and we need to specify the IP address of our Linux server. So I'm just going to go and get that from DigitalOcean again and copy it into my clipboard and paste that in here. The user is root, and we'll need to specify our password here. And the directory this is going to be published to is var reactivities. And this is going to contain all of our code that we're publishing to our Linux server. And what this is going to do, this mapping here, is going to take the contents of our publish folder and publish them into the root of this directory. And I'll just close this file down so I don't need to worry about blurring the password again. So let's just go back to our little script, and what we need to do then is run the .NET publish command, and the configuration is going to be release, and the output folder is going to be our publish folder. The self-contained flag is going to be set to false because we're running this application on a server that has the .NET runtime installed. So that means any of the .NET Core packages that we've used inside our application are already going to be available on the server. And the solution that we're deploying obviously is our reactivity solution. So let's just copy this into our clipboard and head back to VS Code. And I'll just open up at the terminal window. So I'm just going to paste in the command to publish our application. And this is going to output the files into a publish folder. And just to clarify what the self-contained false means, if I go and take a look in my API project and the .cs proj file, then what we have inside here is a package reference that includes microsoft.aspnetcore.app. Now this includes all of the packages, or some of the packages we're using in our application as part of the .NET Runtime Store. And when we publish our application to a server that has the .NET Runtime installed, then we already have available these packages inside here. And that means we don't need to make or package up all of the packages that we're using that are available from inside here, because they're going to be available on our Linux server based on the fact we've installed the .NET Runtime there. So I'm just going to press return to execute this particular command. And this goes ahead and publishes our application. Now this has also added a lot of files into source control, so we don't need anything that's contained in a publish folder to be able to publish that into source control. We can remove that as well. So I'm just going to go to my git ignore file, and I'm just going to add publish as an excluded directory from there as well, so that we don't ever send up these files to GitHub, because we can recreate them anytime we want just by running that command. Now sometimes you'll see an error when we do this, and you'll see a bunch of different problems that are in your problem area here. And sometimes it generates duplicate assembly info inside the files. So what I'm also going to do, even though I'm not seeing this particular error this time, is I'm just going to go to each of the CS proj files inside my solution, and I'm just going to add a tag and say generate assembly info, and add the closing tag, and I'm just going to set this to false, and I'm going to repeat this in every single CS proj file inside my solution. And I'm doing this even though I don't see the error on this occasion, because I have seen it before and I fully expect that you'll probably see it in your project. So I'm just going to do the same inside the infrastructure project. Just going to paste in this particular element inside the property group of each of the CS proj files. I'll do the same for domain, and just add it inside the property group here, and I'll do the same for the application and add it in here, and I'll also do the same for the API. Go to this CS proj file and look for the property group and just add it inside here as well. And like I say, it doesn't make any difference to my particular application at the moment, but it could well affect yours, and this is the solution for that. So what we'll do next is we'll actually deploy our application. So now we need to deploy our files to our Linux service. Let's just open up the command window, and we want to look for deploy, and deploy reloaded, and we'll select deploy, and we want to deploy a package which is going to deploy the files inside our publish folder. And it says no files found, so I am going to have to open up the settings.json file again. And this is looking for files in just publish, but we need to be more specific and say API publish in this case. So I'm just going to try this again, and once again click deploy and deploy package, and now we go ahead and deploy all of our files inside there. And this will take a minute or two. Okay, so that might take a few minutes, but once this has completed, what we want to do next is go back to our Linux server and make sure we have all of these files available. Now, it's been quite a while since I've done anything with this, and amazingly, I can still type into the console. So we've done this part now, so we've deployed our package, and what we want to do now is check that these files exist on our server. So we're just going to list the contents of the /var/reactivities folder and make sure that we can see our various files inside there, and we can see all of our published files that are available inside our reactivities folder, including the www root folder, which includes our index.html file. So that's good. And then what we want to do is we need to set up a service inside our Linux server so that it can actually run our Kestrel service on the Linux server itself. And what we can do inside here is, first of all, open our text editor, and we're going to call this service Kestrel-Web Service. And then we have the configuration for this service as well. Now, importantly, what we're doing here is we're starting the .NET service and we're pointing it to our API DLL. And that's basically our application that's going to be running. We've got some information about the working directory, so var activities, some restart information, and we're going to say always restart, and a syslog identifier to identify the application in the system logs, username of www.data. And what we can do inside here as well is specify our environment variables, and this is a secure place to store them on our particular server. Now, I didn't do anything with my app settings file before I published it, so these configuration settings are going to be in two places. They're going to be inside here, and they're going to be inside the app settings.json file. But technically, you can remove them from the app settings file now, and we can store them securely on our server by using these environment variables here. So what we'll do is we'll use the sudo nano command to open the text editor, and I'll just paste this in. And then what we'll do is we'll grab all of the contents of this, including the unit all the way down to wanted by, copy this into the clipboard and just paste this in. And then what we want to do is exit out of this and save our changes. So we'll say yes and press return. And let's go back to the little script. And then what we want to do is enable this particular service. So we'll just paste in this particular command. And that looked okay. And let's just start the service. And no errors so far. And we also want to make sure that the server is listening on port 5000, so let's just paste in this netstack command as well and make sure that we've got a listener on port 5000, which is our .NET process, and that's running as well. So let's just make sure that our database has populated itself with data, because just like any other thing that we're doing really, it's going to be using our program.cs class, so it's going to seed the data and create the database when we start our application. And by starting the web service, this is going to start our API and therefore start our application. So what we should be able to see is that database. So let's just go into MySQL -u app user -p and press return and type in the password. And if we type in show databases, then what we should find is that we've got a reactivities database there, and we can use reactivities. And if we show tables, then we should find we've got all of our tables inside here as well. But obviously the crucial test is, does our application work? So let's go and take a look. And we're listening on our IP address, so we can take our IP address here. Let's say HTTP and just paste in our IP address. Cross our fingers, press return, and hey presto. And once again my moment has been ruined, because what we're seeing here is the default page that Apache provides on our particular server, which is displaying this instead of what we should be seeing, which is our application. So that's quite disappointing. But what I'm going to do first of all, I'm just going to do the basics. I'm just going to reload Apache. I'm just going to go down to our web service. I'm also going to restart this as well. And instead of start, I'm just going to say restart. And I'm just going to go back and try this one more time. So I'm just going to refresh the page. And same thing again. Now, our sites available folder inside here, let's just go and take a look at the sites available. So I'm just going to ls the etc, the Apache 2, and not sites available, but sites enabled, and just look at the content inside here. And what's going on here is our default configuration is enabled, and our reactivities config is enabled as well. And both of these are going to have the same virtual host configuration, because if I just display the contents of the default config, and I'll say cat etc Apache 2 sites -enabled, and just take a look at the default config, then what we'll find is that this is also listening on any IP address at port 80 as well. So we need to disable this particular site so that only our site is listening on the all IP address, which is the asterisk. And what we can do is we can just say A2 DIS SITE, and we'll specify 000 -defaults and press return. And then we'll just use the reload Apache 2. And now let's go back and refresh our page and see if we get our application. So I've crossed my fingers once again. I'm going to reload the page. Aha! And this looks more like it. Now we get our application. And what we should be able to do is log in with our normal users, because we've also seeded this into our new Linux MySQL server database as well. So let's try and log in as bob@test.com with the password. And we're in. And we should be able to click around and do various things. and our filters appear to be working. And we can go and get the activities in the future, so that's a good start. So let's just click inside an activity to make sure we can view this. And we should be able to join an activity, and we can. We should be able to cancel the attendance. We should be able to send a comment to the event itself, and that's working as well. And let's just test the photo upload as well. So I'm just going to go into my profile and click on photos and click on add photo. And I'll just drag an image in as well and just rearrange this a little bit and send this up as well to the server. And we get our photo upload as well. And we should be able to see the activities. I'm not following anybody, but we should be able to basically use our site as we did before. And I'll just create a quick test activity. And I'll click film and just click a date sometime in the future. And the city, I'll just put London. And venue, I'll just say somewhere. And click submit. And we get our new event inside here as well. And I can click on the activities again and I can see this in the list. Excellent. So what we also see inside here though is this. We're running this site over HTTP. And we're asking users to log into our site, and that means they're sending their credentials across the wire in clear text, and that's always a bad thing. Now, the next lesson is going to be optional. I want to show you how to achieve it, but it does require a few things that have to be purchased, such as a DNS domain name and a valid SSL certificate from a trusted certificate authority. But I'm going to go through it anyway, just so you've got something to refer back to if you do want to publish your own application and you do need to secure it on a Linux server. And we'll take a look at that next.